I'm Mr. eTutor, your mystery tutor here at mysterytutor.com, and welcome to video module 13-4. In this module, we'll discuss the reading section of the ACT. The best way to approach ACT reading is really to start with a solid foundation in the basics of SAT reading. As you'll probably recall, when we talked about SAT reading in those modules, we talked about the general idea that on the SAT reading section, every correct answer to a passage-based reading question will need to restate a concept directly from the passage, often word for word or phrase by phrase. As we saw, this would remove any sort of subjectivity in the grading, which is really the only way that you can create a reliable, nationally standardized multiple-choice reading test, which is what the SAT is after, of course. Well, the ACT is basically going after the same type of thing. So if you are familiar with the SAT reading strategies, you can apply almost all of them directly to the ACT reading strategies. ACT reading is a little bit harder, though, in a couple of respects. First of all, ACT reading questions will not necessarily go in chronological order, like the SAT reading questions tend to do within the passage. Another interesting thing is that ACT reading questions tend not to have line citations, whereas on the SAT, you're far more likely to see line citation questions more often. This tempts a lot of people to try to read the entire ACT passage before they answer any of the questions for that passage. And if you want to do that, by all means, go for it, but it does take a lot of people a lot more time than they would like to spend. Now, I personally have this thing where I can't stand it when somebody makes me read anything, so in order to feel like I'm tougher than the ACT, I don't actually read the passages before I answer the questions, even though it's not as easy to do that on the ACT as it is on the SAT. If you get into the general habit of effectively skimming the ACT passages to answer certain questions, you'll develop the ability relatively soon to be able to sort of locate which part of the passage needs to be focused in on when you answer any individual question. If you don't feel like doing that, that is completely fine. You can absolutely read the passage and try to recall what is where when you come to the individual questions. But I just want you to know it's not essential to read the passage. Another difference between the two reading sections is the fact that the ACT reading will occasionally require a shade more subjectivity than the SAT reading does. While you're still generally going to want to follow the policy of being completely objective and looking for an answer choice that restates the passage directly, occasionally you will come across an ACT question where that's just not possible. And actually, an excellent example of a question like that turns out to be the very first passage-based reading question in the entire ACT practice book. So if you would open that book to, let's see, it's page 181, question 1 there, cannot really be answered only from reading the part of the passage that the answer choice refers you to. In order to answer this question correctly, you have to find phrases like, I knew that at some point in her path she would make a U-turn, and I was not surprised when I walked down a gravel drive and found a flimsy envelope with a Dallas postmark. You're going to have to take phrases like that and sort of make out that the correct answer is choice A, which says their lives are still connected despite long separations of time and distance. That again just sort of speaks to the inherent awfulness of the way the ACT is designed. You're not going to see a lot of questions like that. You will occasionally see some of them. But if you still stick to your guns with the SAT type of reading and demand that the correct answer choice be objective, you're going to find for questions like that that the 3 wrong answer choices are all completely out of line, and only the correct answer choice even halfway kind of makes any sense at all. So even though there will occasionally be ACT questions that do require a small amount of subjective reading on your part, if you still approach them with the basis of the SAT reading, you're going to have no problem with those questions. You'll find them much, much easier than a person will find them who doesn't know anything about SAT reading and only tries to read this in the way that you would read something for English class. So that's basically it for the ACT reading section. And remember, the best way to get ready for these questions, just like with all the other ACT questions, is to do some real practice things either from this book or from the free online materials, and then go to the forums at www.mysterytutorvault.com and post any issues or comments or concerns that you have about these over there. And that's the best way to do that. So, thanks very much for watching, and remember, it's easier than you think.